Thank you so much. I am incredibly excited to be here. Today we're going to be talking about building AI products competitors can't match. Before we get started, I have a question for you. Raise your hand if you're working on an AI-powered product. All right, great. So about half. I imagine next year that will be everyone in the room. I'm going to be talking about part of a course that I worked on with Brian Balfour. We just released it called AI Strategy. And in it, we're asking the question of, we're in one of the most competitive times in the history of tech. How can you, as product builders, build products that are going to win with AI? And so I'm really excited to get into it today. About 100 years ago, the French government commissioned artist Jean-Marc Coté to create images of what the future would look like. And in it, he was imagining, based on what they knew in 1900, what it would look like in the year 2000. He imagined airmail, fast fashion, and a much better way to get ready in the morning. But what he imagined the future would look like is not what it looks like today. Today, our future looks like this. Everyone's staring at their phones, everyone's on their computer, everyone's working with their iPads. And so how did we get from 1900 to today? And the answer is that our time, the time that we live in today, is not defined by just any technology. It's defined by information technology. And information technology over the last 50 years has unfolded in 3 different waves. The first wave was the PC revolution, the second wave was the internet revolution, and the third wave was the mobile revolution. And as an industry, we absolutely love these waves. Every time there's a tech or a platform shift, it creates fertile ground for new companies. And the companies that we all know, that we live with today, often emerge during one of these waves, during one of these times of volatility. And so Microsoft and Intel and Oracle came out of the PC era. Google and Facebook came out of the internet era. And Apple was revived in the mobile era. Same with Uber and TikTok. And one of the reasons that we as an industry love these waves is because when they happen, they create wide blue oceans of opportunity. In the book Blue Ocean Strategy, the authors talk about 2 different types of markets. There's blue ocean markets, which are relatively untapped. They're rich with opportunities. Companies that are early to those markets basically get to fish in those markets alone. And then there's red ocean markets. And these are contested markets where companies are fighting for market share. These markets are hyper-competitive. Oftentimes, companies are competing on price, and they're trading off on market share. As I mentioned, the transition between these waves in the past has been a time of blue ocean opportunity. The PC, the internet, the mobile revolutions all created opportunities to disrupt incumbents and opportunities for new companies to emerge. We're now in the 4th wave of the information technology revolution. We're in the AI wave. It will change everything over the next 5 to 10 years. But there's a problem. There we go. There was a problem. So this time is different. There's not as much blue ocean opportunity. Companies that are competing in AI are finding themselves competing in a lightning-fast environment. There's been darlings of AI that were the next great thing 12 months ago, and they're being disrupted today. Companies that are looking to compete in AI find themselves competing against big platform companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, who are providing the models, but they're also making the killer apps. And so anyone who's using their models has to compete with them directly. There's companies like Microsoft and Adobe, big tech companies that have been waiting for the next wave. They all thought it was cryptocurrency. It wasn't. It's AI. And they've jumped in headfirst, and they're competing really intensely to make sure that they don't get disrupted, to make sure that they don't lose market share. And then there's a raft of well-funded startups. VCs love waves. They invest in waves. And so they've got tons of money going into startups. And so for companies that are looking to break through with AI or looking to preserve their current market with AI, they're finding that they have to compete in an incredibly competitive space. And this is leading to something that we have not seen in the history of technology. This is leading to some companies experiencing product market fit collapse. And so nearly overnight, a company can go from having a great business to all of a sudden being disrupted. One example of that is Chegg. Chegg provides a marketplace for students to be able to come to get help with their homework, a job that ChatGPT does much better today than Chegg was able to do a few years ago. And in the time since ChatGPT's launch, Chegg has lost 97% of its market cap. And Chegg is not the only example. There's other examples as well, like Stack Overflow, that are experiencing this phenomenon of product market collapse. Meanwhile, we have companies growing faster than ever before. ChatGPT grew to 1 million users in just 5 days. Midjourney went from launch to $500 million in ARR in just 3 years. And so the question that should be on everyone's mind is how to make sure that you're not in the former camp and you are in the latter camp. How do you make sure that you win in the most intense environment in the history of technology? And that's a question that I want to answer today. So you may think winning with AI means winning in AI, having the best AI models. And 18 months ago, if you asked anyone who the winners were going to be, that was the answer. Don't create a GPT wrapper. You need to be able to train your own models. But unfortunately, training your own models is prohibitively expensive. It requires hard-to-find machine learning talent and requires tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in training costs. So it may not be feasible to train your own models, but it's also not necessary. One of the most interesting things that I think has happened is in this chapter of technology, it hasn't been the case that the big companies are hoarding the best technology. The best models are available for you to access today via an API call or via a cloud model. And so you don't need to invest heavily in AI in order to create a winning AI product. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. But the other extreme is also true. You can't get away with underinvesting. There's too many products that just say, okay, we're going to add a chatbot, or maybe we'll do some retrieval augmented generation. And they layer AI on top of their product. They basically sprinkle it on rather than integrating it. And the problem is that these AI features are not differentiated. Anyone can add this, and as a result, these features don't create competitive advantage, and your competitors can quickly replicate them. The right answer is somewhere in between. It's a modular approach. It's treating AI like Lego blocks that you can snap together to create deep, thoughtful solutions to your customers' problems. And that's something I want to talk through today. How do you think about the different Lego blocks that are available to you, and how do you snap them together in a way that creates competitive advantage for your company? So the anatomy of a winning product consists of 3 elements. The first is the AI capabilities, the second is your data, and the third is the functionality that your product offers. So of course, building a winning AI product starts with AI. Powerful AI models can do things that felt magical just a few years ago. Those models are just an API call away in many cases. And the question that we all have to ask is if everyone has access to the same AI capabilities, then how do you create something that stands out? And the answer is that winning with AI means creating competitive advantage with the things that are uniquely yours. Whether you're a startup that is building something new or an established company, you have things that are proprietary to you. You have your data. You have the functionality of your product today. And most importantly, you have your understanding of unmet customer needs. And these are the ingredients with which you can build a winning AI strategy. So it starts with your data. AI models operate on context, and ultimately the context that they have is the data that your company can bring to the table. And so this is the most important element in turning off-the-shelf AI capabilities into something bespoke for your product. Next is something that is emerging but really important to think about. It is your product and what it does. Everything that your product does can be a superpower for AI. It gives your product the ability to determine how AI behaves, and increasingly with agentic AI, AI can actually be a user of your product to create value for your customers. And so that's really important to think about, not just your data, but also the functionality that your product has, because that is ultimately the superpower that you can unlock for your AI models. And where the differentiation really comes in is, how does all of this connect to each other? What are the different ways in which we can snap these blocks together to create something that is powerful, that is thoughtful, and that meets your customers' needs better than any of your competitors can? And so let's take a look at these 4 different ways that you can connect your proprietary data and functionality with AI models. The first one is context. So your data is something that you can pass to the AI models. This gives AI the necessary information to create an answer that is better than what your competitors can provide, because you can provide the information necessary to do a great job answering that question. And so, for example, this may include a medical diagnostic tool that uses patient health records in order to inform answers. And because you have the patient's health record, your answer is going to be better, more personalized than what's available on OpenAI. Next is generative AI generates information. And this is valuable not just because of the fact that that provides an answer to the user, but every piece of information that AI generates actually becomes part of the proprietary information that you have. And that creates a flywheel effect that gets stronger and stronger over time. Your functionality connects with AI capabilities by determining when to use AI. AI is not a solution for everything. Traditional software will continue to be one of the most important ways that you can solve customer problems. The secret lies in, when does your traditional software actually delegate a task to the AI in order to do something that can't be coded traditionally. For example, an email client might, after a user stopped typing for 5 seconds, offer suggestions to the user to complete their email. And so those sorts of ideas of when you actually invoke AI functionality within your product are an important way that you solve customer problems. And lastly, one of the things I'm most excited about is tool use. And so this is the ability not just for your product to use AI, but for AI to use your product. In the future, AI is going to be your product's most sophisticated user. We're starting to see this with agentic systems, and this is something that will be a key area of innovation, not just for the big AI companies, but for all of you who are thinking about, what can my product do today that AI can't, and how can I enable AI to leverage that? And so a really good example is a customer support agent, which can use your payment system to issue a refund when a customer asks an eligible request. And that's the sort of thing that these off-the-shelf models can't do unless they tap into your systems. So this is ultimately the formula that you can use to create an AI product your competitors can't match. They don't have access to your data, they don't have access to your product, your functionality, they don't have access to your customers, and so this is the way that we can think about taking off-the-shelf AI capabilities and making them work well for our products. And ultimately, one of the important things to understand is AI doesn't just create new capabilities, it actually enhances your company's existing assets. It makes your data more valuable, it makes your product functionality more valuable. So let's look at an example. Miro is a collaborative whiteboard. I'm sure a lot of people here use Miro day to day. And one of the things that they've done over the last 18 months is really evolve that whiteboard experience into an AI-powered collaboration space. One of the features that they have is called AI Sidekick. And so AI Sidekick, you can use it within a board. Once you have a bunch of sticky notes on your board, you can ask for feedback. And then you can pick the persona that you want to give you feedback. You can have an agile coach give you feedback. You can have a product leader give you feedback. And what that feature will do is it'll look at all of the notes that are on your board, put that through a proprietary model, and then give you answers that don't just appear as sort of generated text, but actually appear as comments from another user. Essentially, the AI sidekick gives you another pair of eyes on your brainstorm or whatever else you're doing within Miro. And so how does this work? Miro has not created its own AI models. They're using off-the-shelf models, but what they've done is first they've set context. And so the context that's going into the AI is all of the notes that are on the board. And because AI has access to it, it has situational awareness of all of the content. It has the same context that the rest of your team has. It then will generate contextual advice based on that context, and it will generate it from different personas depending on what the user wants. In terms of how the feature is orchestrated, users can ask for feedback whenever they need another pair of eyes. So the user decides when they want to invoke the sidekick and what type of personality that it wants to have. But the really key thing here is tool use. So the AI doesn't just generate text. The AI can use the native capabilities within Miro to actually create comments just like any other user would. And so your AI sidekick acts as any other team member would be on your team. And so Miro's has the same access to AI capabilities that we all have, but they've used those capabilities to build something that only Miro can deliver. So the key question is, how can you use this approach with your own products? And it all starts with customer problems. The latest AI capabilities give us more solutions than ever. And so the thing that we have to be aware of is not having solutions in search of problems. Just because AI can do something doesn't mean that it should. Always start with the customer and work backwards. You can look for unresolved pain points, repetitive tasks, cognitive burden, inefficient workflows. All of those will be the raw material from which you can create differentiated AI features. And ultimately, the best AI features come at the intersection of what AI can do and what customer problems you have that are not addressed today. I think this is one of the best examples. So Descript, if you haven't used it, I recommend checking it out. It's one of the coolest AI products, and it uses AI throughout the creator workflow to make video editing much easier. Video editing is something that hasn't changed in 20 years, 30 years. The timeline has looked predominantly the same. But Descript has reinvented video editing by using AI at the center. So in fact, people can edit video not by editing the timeline, but actually by editing their original script. And over time, they've layered on a number of really interesting features that can feel magical for creators. Importantly, they haven't talked about these features in terms of the underlying AI capabilities. They've talked about the features in terms that a creator, in very human terms, that a creator needs. So they help creators look and sound their best. One of the best examples is they have a feature called eye contact. And it will use AI to look at the video and identify when a person is looking away from the camera, and it will automatically change their eyes so that they're looking straight into the camera. And it works fantastically well. And that's a need that creators have. Creators are often looking at their script while they're also looking at their audience, and that can make for a jarring video. At the click of a button, Miro can solve that. Another feature that they have is studio sound. And so creators are often creating content in various different places. They may not have access to their studio. They might be creating content on the run, or they might be creating content in their apartment, and so they don't have great sound. And so Descript can take a sound and put it through an AI filter and make it sound studio quality. And so these are great examples of how to take AI capabilities and solve very human needs. One of the things I'm most excited about today is that there is a massively growing library of AI capabilities that we can all tap into. These capabilities didn't exist 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and they would have been impossible to code traditionally. But now, because of the massive improvements in AI, we're able to do things that will feel magical to our users. We can translate, edit, manipulate, generate text. We can do the same with images and video and audio. And one of the things I'm most excited about is we have increasingly powerful reasoning models that can plan a task, that can use tools, and actually coordinate with other agents. And so as product builders, we have more Lego blocks than ever to work with. So the question is, how do you get started? It starts by selecting which of these AI models you want to use based on the customer problems that you want to solve. You can use models that are text generation models, image generation models, security models. You can train your own models. The opportunities are really limitless. Then it's important to ask, what data do you have available that you can use to drive those models? As I've talked about, context is the most important thing to getting AI to be able to work in a way that is specific to your product. And there's various different types of data that you can tap into. There's real-time data. That might be traffic info or flight prices. Real-time data is not in the training set that the AI was originally trained on. That's one of the limitations of AI models. So if you have access to real-time data that is relevant for your customers, that's a great way to add that to the AI capabilities and do something with your product that others can't. There might be user data. So this is all of the data that you have available with which to personalize. This might be a listening or viewing history. It might be medical records. It might be financial records. All of these can feed your AI models. There's domain-specific data. So many of us are in domains that require specific expertise. This expertise represents data that is not easily crawlable and is not in the training data set for AI models and are things that you can add in. This could be legal case studies or financial compliance guidelines or anything else that is hard to find that is specific to your business. There's human judgment data, and so this is data that can layer on top of existing data sources to help you curate them. It could be ratings and reviews. It could be editorial decisions. One of the things that helped Midjourney in the early days really stand out in terms of image generation is they curated the training data set that was used. And so they had people go in and rate images based on aesthetic quality. And as a result of doing that, they were able to create a model that does a much better job creating images that are aesthetic. And lastly, there's reinforcement data. And this is one of the most important. As users use your product, you can collect data from them, a thumbs up or a thumbs down on whether or not they liked the response. You can generate multiple variants and see which of the variants they chose. And so this is data that gets incorporated back into your system, that is data that you own, that allows you to take a standing start and create compounding advantage over time. And then lastly, there's your functionality. And so this is everything that your product can do. And your functionality is important in two ways. The first way is your product determines when to use AI capabilities. So you can pull in the right solution at the right time. But increasingly, AI can use your product like a tool, tapping into your product's functionality as a way of generating output. And so there's a few different things that we can look into within our products to identify really interesting areas for competitive advantage. There might be specialized workflows like contract review pipelines or financial approval processes or medication prescription workflows. There might be unique algorithms. Some of the most valuable technology in the world today are things like TikTok's algorithm or Netflix's personalization algorithm, so you can tap into that. You can use complex business rules. These might be decision criteria. It could be insurance underwriting criteria. It could be loan approval processes. And lastly, your products integrate into a number of different systems, and those are systems that you can expose to the AI. These can be things like integrating healthcare records or integrating with your payment system. And then once you have an idea of what is the customer problem that you're trying to solve, what are the AI capabilities that you're going to use, what's the data and functionality that you're going to bear, you can think about how does all of this connect together? What's the context that we want to set? What's the data that we're going to generate? How are we going to orchestrate that whole process? And how are we going to enable AI to use our product like a tool? So I want to look at one final example. This, I think, is one of the most interesting ones. Granola is one of the fastest growing AI note-taking products. They just raised a $43 million round. But what's interesting about Granola is they started to grow in a red ocean. AI note-taking is one of the first markets that really started to work. And there's companies in that space like Otter and Fireflies. all of the big meeting platforms like Google Meet and Zoom and Teams have all added built-in AI transcription and note-taking. So in this red ocean, how did Granola break through? How did Granola figure out a winning formula that enabled them to build one of the fastest-growing AI businesses? It started with the customer problem. And so all of the existing competitors said, we are going to enable you to delegate note-taking to us. And so they solve the problem of someone who wants someone else to take their notes. They essentially act as a secretary that people can delegate to. Granola identified another customer. Many of us are going to be in this bucket. They identified an important segment of users who view note-taking not as something that they want to delegate, but something that they want to do better. There are people that live and die by their notes. Many of us in this room are that way. Our job is to take those notes and to make sure that they're capturing the right things and we're moving the organization forward. And so they don't want someone else to take their notes. They want to take better notes. So Granola created a platform for them. They created a platform for the person who wants to use AI to amplify, but not to replace. They started with off-the-shelf AI capabilities. Granola has no proprietary AI capabilities today. They're using DeepGram for transcription. They're using OpenAI and Anthropic for things like chat and note generation and generating follow-up emails. And they put that together in a winning formula. So they started with context. They don't just transcribe a meeting and then generate notes from the meeting. They actually give a blank page to a person where they can type in their notes, and they take the notes that a person has typed in, plus the transcription, and they use that to generate output, which is a better set of notes than you could take on your own, and a better set of notes than you'd get purely from the transcription. And those notes that go into the system create a repository of information. They create a second brain of high-quality notes for you as an individual and for people that are working within a team. From an orchestration standpoint, they made a really interesting decision. Granola is not a web app. It's a Mac app, and so it runs locally on your computer. That gives them the ability to access the system sound so they can start the transcription process without having to have a meeting agent join a meeting. It also allows them to detect when you start a meeting. It might be in Zoom, it might be in Google Meet, it might be in another platform. They're able to detect that and automatically start transcription. And then lastly, Granola uses your calendar like a tool to pull in attendees, to pull in meeting topics, and uses that as metadata to make the notes better. So all of those things work together with off-the-shelf models to do something that is proprietary, that is a winning formula that was able to break through. And so, as you can see from my gray hair, I have seen a lot of the history of tech firsthand. This is the most intense time I have seen. It is the most competitive time. Winning in the AI era doesn't mean that you need to hire a team full of ML engineers. It doesn't mean that you need to spend tens of millions of dollars on AI training. It starts from asking yourself 4 important questions. What unmet customer problems need to be solved? What AI capabilities can solve those in a novel way? What proprietary data can power those solutions? And what superpowers can our product give to AI? 120 years ago, Jean-Marc Coté couldn't have known what our future looks like, but he did know that we would all be trapped on Zoom calls. Today, you can't know what the future is going to hold, but you can be part of building it. And winning with AI isn't really about the AI. It's about people and the jobs that they need done. So the question for you for the rest of the day is, what will you build in the AI era? Thank you so much.